All right, so good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining in today to another day of the E-Meet Your Architecture School. Um, the objective of the DQ Labs webinar series is for students of this batch to build your preferred list of architecture schools, right? When you go in for your CT or your Comment K, you need to put in your preferred list, and that's when uh, you need to know what you're putting in there. You need to be familiar with the list of schools that you're putting in there. And to understand why you're putting your list that way, you need to have a logical approach. And the best way to do that is to interact with the management of the school and identify the best option that suits you. Now, what suits you may not be the same of what suits your friend, right? So don't go by what your friends are putting as their preferred list. Build up the list for yourself. If you missed the previous webinar on the 2022 Architecture KCET and Commit K process, you could go onto our YouTube channel and you can find this there. Today, we are interacting with Wadiyar Center for Architecture. Now, that's an interesting school which was established quite some time ago. And it was initiated by two trusts, the Design Foster Trust and SJUET. All right, they're both based in Bangalore. Now, Wadiyar Center for Architecture focuses on imparting architectural education, addressing the current needs of the country. They help students be acquainted with the knowledge systems that can aid in their professional growth. The college has well-maintained infrastructure, which is constantly upgraded, and all members of the faculty at Wadiyar come with experience in both practice and academics, and also with multidisciplinary perspectives. All right. Today, we're having a very different approach. We have Professor Julie Ann Tarakan, who's the Associate Professor at Wcfa. She's a gold medal winner. She's got wide experience in architectural practice as well as academics, right? So she's done her Bachelor's of Architecture from the University School of Design in Mysore University and her Master's of Arts in Social Anthropology from IGNOU campus program. Now, this is interesting, going from architecture to anthropology, right? So we will interact with Julie and understand how those two are related. Julie is an architect and an academician. Her academic interests and success were apparent in her early days when her undergraduate thesis was judged to be among the top 10 for the NIASA Awards in Zone 5. She's also the gold medalist in her master's program. Julie began working as an architect in Pondicherry with the renowned firm Ovoid. She then joined the College of Architecture in Trivandrum as a lecturer. She brings her combined passion for architecture and academics to Wcfa as an associate professor. Interestingly, we also have Alipta Govindu, all right, who's a former student of Wadiyar, and she will give her experience of studying at the institute. And she's currently working as an architect with Studio Matter in Goa. So, very, very interesting to get a student's perspective, a student who's graduated and got into industry, right? So she's pursuing design, architecture, and curation. She's interested in history, theory, and research, right? So for those of y'all who are watching this webinar live and say that your friends should watch this webinar, please go onto our YouTube channel and you will find this recorded session of this webinar on our YouTube channel, and you can watch it at any point of time. Right, so over to Julie. Julie, thank you so much for coming in. Alipta, thank you as well. Great to have both of you all here. Right. So
thanks, Dion. Nice to have you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. So, so Julie, just starting with you. Um, Very interesting. I mean, we've seen you pretty active here and with the design hackathon, you know, very willing and encouraging to the next batch of students getting interested in architecture and getting into architecture. So could you give us a little background to yourself and your interests and what motivates you to be into academics?
Yeah, okay. I mean, pretty much everything about what I did was out there and what was talked about. But yeah, there is uh, something about academics that can keep your um, entire practice active in the sense that you might have certain ideologies, certain principles, a certain way in which you want to think about projects and the city and the society and everything. And being in academics kind of help us to mold our thoughts better when we participate at this larger platform called architectural practice. So uh, yes, after this course called Bachelor's in Architecture, which was a 5 years course, and that's probably how it's going to be for at least 2 more years. Um, there was what happens during this course is a lot of these different disciplines are introduced to you as part of building your taste and your aptitude in this particular profession. So it is in one such occasion that I came across anthropology, and then I really wanted to explore what are the possibilities or what are the ways in which I could connect these two disciplines. And so it's not a path often taken, but then it's a path that you can take when you really want to have your ways of understanding this discipline. So that's where all this started from, and I think academics helped me take that forward. So the student in me is kept alive when I'm back in academics.
It's interesting because you brought in anthropology there, which is where I wanted to take this conversation into. Um, Anthropology, what is that about? And how is that related to architecture? How did that build you as an architect or further your interest in architecture? Yeah.
Right. So anthropology, there are different disciplines, but then social anthropology mostly deals with studying the society at large, um, and there is a way to study this, that is by actively participating with the society or the community that you're designing for or working with. So you need to be spending quite an amount of time understanding ways of doing things to uh, to propose or intervene in any way that you want. So a lot of times architecture, it's never like we are building for ourselves, right? We design and we always cater to someone else's need. Even if it's a residence or you start with a small residence to go into a public building like the parliament or anything, you're always out there designing for someone else. So there is more to it than just the architect. There is more to it in terms of who the people who work there, the ambition of the people who might walk in there, the workers who will be making this building. So there are different stakeholders at this in this entire process. So the way I work is I try to combine this. So whatever skill sets you acquired over your master's program, I try to kind of employ this to see how well it can be converted into what makes it better for the different stakeholders.
Interesting. Very, very interesting. Right. Let me go over to Alipta. All right. So, Alipta, very interesting to see your background now. You've gone as a student and you're working in industry right now. You're based in Goa.
Right.
Let's start off with the kind of projects that you're working on right now.
Right. So I work at Studio Matter in Goa, and we are a design, architecture, and curation firm. So I handle architecture projects, which includes residences, institutions, retail, interior, all of that. But we are also a firm that takes part in curation, which basically means that within the architecture scenario in India, we also are trying to create some conversation between different practices and just ideas and thoughts that people might have. We try to showcase those in our platform and we curate that. So it has also been a very interesting experience where, of course, I'm learning how to build a building, but also I am trying to curate conversations around the larger idea of architecture. So that is something that I was interested in. Even when I was studying in Wadiyar Center for Architecture, I always was very interested in my theory classes. And so I wanted to make sure that I was pursuing both architecture as well as some allied field like that.
Nice. Curation is not something that comes to people's mind when they think about architecture, right?
Right.
Because anyone getting into architecture says, okay, I want to make buildings, right? Maybe houses, maybe hospitals, or XYZ kind of buildings. But could you just delve into curation a little bit? I don't know if you have some examples. If you don't have examples now, maybe you can pull up some examples and show it to us a little later. But just to build on curation, since you brought it up, what are the things you do in curation? What does it mean, and what do you do? How do you go about the process?
So there are a few different things. We are also a publishing house, our office. So this means that we have also published books. We have a journal that we write for, and we edit and we acquire data and then we publish it. This includes everything from writing to laying it out to proofreading to sending it to the printing. We also have a blog which we use to host conversations. So it's all of these things. So we have the more traditional books and journal, but we also have an online platform. So as any design field has, there's always going to be people that are wanting to exchange ideas. And a lot of these people end up, when you're in college especially, you have a lot of these classes. And especially in our college, we used to always have master classes. And we used to have different people coming in, talking about ideas that you won't maybe have in your textbook because it will not be in the syllabus. So it's that kind of effort and an ongoing effort of that, I would say, is curation. It's just curating conversation on the larger idea of design and architecture.
Nice. Interesting. So could you give us an example of whom you've spoken with, whom you've discussed, what kind of different ideas that you've got, or the opportunities that you've had to converse with people and curate that?
So at work, we are doing, actually it is an initiative called Praxis, which is documenting architecture practices in India. So through this, I have traveled to across India and I've interviewed different architects, and for that we prepare an interview and a questionnaire, and then we make sure that it is edited and we put it across and we feature it. And so it's not just speaking to the architects, they talk about their work, they talk about their process, where they went to college, what kind of ideas that they are employing in their practice. So it's really, in a way, it's getting to experience all the amazing work that is going on in the country. So this is one initiative, and we documented 11 architecture practices in India. And all of these were emerging, not all of these were very established and well known. So we wanted it to be emerging practices in India, so less than 10 years old or so. So that's an example.
Nice, interesting. So it's really goes beyond just regular architecture, but it's also about, there's a little bit of like journalism and blogging and all of that. So that's an interesting direction. All right. Thanks for that, Alipta. Okay. Julie, back to you. Okay, now let's get into the details of Wadiyar Center for Architecture. As a faculty there, right? What are the unique aspects of Wcfa that you see there that's very different from other schools that sets WCFA from, any other school in India?
Okay. I think there are a couple of points like that. And I think what immediately comes to my mind is our faculty team. Since we are talking about different allied disciplines and the way we practice and everything, I think one of our biggest strength would be our faculty team here. So to give a brief into how we came into, so this was started by 10 architects plus one structural engineer. So, they've been in this industry for more than 20 years, and they've been, industry for more than that, and at least teaching for more than 20 years. And they have actually built up a lot of schools, and they've been, mentoring a lot of students in the last 20 or more years, that when they came to form their own school, they had a fair idea about what should be the role of architectural education in the current society. So the school was set up with that in mind. It was not just about architecture education. It was kind of important that there should be a knowledge that grows, or the knowledge base that grows over a period of time by both faculty and students. So we have to add value to the already existing system. So the senior faculty who comes, senior most, I would say, would come with such an experience of having more than 20 years of academic and professional practice. But others, all of us who joined later also, so we came with our own strengths and our own ways of wanting to explore in this field. So the college and the management kind of gives us a platform for this, and allows us to experiment with our own ideas. And the best part is that we are allowed to take students along with us in all these processes. Students grows with our own thoughts, and even their thoughts sometimes build on what we want to do next. So it's a very an educational system where we all depend on, be it the faculty or the student. We grow with each other over here. So the senior faculty kind of helps us to build on our ideas, and we don't have to think about them as, oh my God, they are the founders or anything. They're actively participating in academics. They're actively molding what needs to be the future for architecture in the country. At least that much. And the need for focusing on the region and looking at it, what needs to be happening in terms of architecture in the immediate neighborhood level, in the region level, maybe in South India, what should be our language? And also the way in which our faculty collaborates with different architecture schools in and around, and mostly in India, a couple of times abroad as well. But this allows us to have a variety of perspectives. I would say that we are not blinded by this saying that we'll only do architecture. We are able to actually incorporate the different folds of thought that really exist in the field of academia when it comes to that. So I think that's the strength of the institute.
Amazing. All right. Very interesting, because what I got from that is that really what the founders come in, the founding faculty, they come in with a vision. And for you as the practicing faculty or the teaching faculty there, what y'all come in is with various ideas and y'all are given the freedom to explore those ideas.
Right.
Along with the students. And that's also, you brought up a very good point, because it's more like a co-learning experience, because y'all are teaching and y'all are learning as well. Right. Now, I would like to, I'll come down to the collaboration with other schools in a little while, but I would like to build up on this particular point, because it's a very interesting point and something I've seen across in architecture, right? Probably in all other fields, students, when they learn, they go from one level to the next, to the next, to the next. It's a very progressive kind of a field. Whereas when it comes to architecture, you always have students learning from juniors, learning from seniors, learning from the peers. The co-learning environment is always constant, right?
Yeah.
And that's something I see very strong in architecture. How is the relationship in your school between like the seniors and the juniors and the interactions that they have? How is that there?
Uh, I think that only remains in paper. It's something that you need to have to run the institute. But when it really comes to a learning environment, none of this really matter. We learn from each other, and uh, nobody really segregates students from faculty. Or the only difference probably would be the students would be taking up the VT or the university exam, but everyone else is learning together, right? So that difference is almost negligible when it comes to academics, when it comes to the real stuff. But yes, everything else is actually there on, you know, they
Okay.
are organizational tools. That's
All right, got that. Coming down to the founding team now, this is very important because every other architecture school I've seen, I mean, and this goes right across the country, probably barring the SPAs, right? Every other architecture school in the country that I've come across is part of a larger educational institution, right? So you have a college that is very strong in maybe medicine or engineering, and then they start up a new building and a new stream called architecture. Whereas the difference I see with Wadiyar is that it is a standalone architecture school, no engineering, no medicine, there's no other thing there, right? So all the founders are, from what I understand, they're not only founders, but they also come back and teach, right? They're actively teaching. So how do you think this aspect actually creates an impact on the students studying at your school?
right. So as I mentioned, it's just architecture that we have here, and maybe we tie up with other disciplines, but that's it. But the course is mainly about architecture. Now, when it comes to such experienced, faculty members have been on campus, it really helps us because it there's a set of experience that they come with, and they've seen the world and they've seen the country in different phase of its growth, right? And also, uh, they have really, I should also say that almost all of us, and especially the senior faculty, are well traveled. So, your inspiration comes from people who can talk about things because they have experienced it. It's not, there's no book in architecture, there's no textbook at all. So, um, to teach this particular subject, you come here, and then all that we can give is the environment to learn. And this environment to learn is a cumulative effect of what everyone has to offer. So the founding members, them having practiced, them having really seen a lot of these projects that has happened all around the globe, where most of us may not yet have seen it. It will take us some more time to go out and see these, but then to learn from it, to be inspired by projects, to be inspired by the ways in which people think at different levels in different parts of the world. This is where I think the expertise of this senior faculty members really play a role. Because one important thing that education has to do is to take away the fear component in every student. You can't be scared to do what you want to do or what you think you can do. And that comes with people who can tell you there is nothing that's going to stop, and there could be problems on the way, but there are also ways to mend it. Now that is where really these expertise comes in.
All right. Nice. Um, Interesting. Now I would like to go on, build this up with Alipta, right? So Alipta, we've heard from Julie about how the impact of the faculty is, or the founding faculty is on students, right? Now I wanted to understand from you how that has impacted you and how it's helping you. Maybe let's break it up into two, how it impacted you while you were studying, and how it's impacting you now that you've graduated and you're in industry.
Right. I think the faculty was one of the main reasons why I joined the college, because I'm from the first batch of the college. And so there really wasn't anybody that I could talk to, like a student that had passed out or that was studying. So I really had to rely on speaking to the faculty and visiting the campus and understanding what it would possibly look like. And I'm really glad that I ended up going to this place, because we have two sets of really amazing teachers. One is, of course, the founding, more senior faculty. And, they would always just sometime in the campus during class, we would just sit with them and they would just talk to us about the work that they have done, or their ideas, or they would encourage us and try to find out about us. And also understand where we are coming from. And these conversations would always happen. And a lot of times when you're a student and you come from a non-architectural background, you don't understand who are the great architects in the country and what's the good work in the country, and what's the difference between good work and work that is maybe not making that much of a difference. And these are the conversations with the senior faculty that I really think about. And with the junior faculty, it was different dynamic, because we didn't have seniors, but I think because we had such great junior faculty, they never made us feel that way. So they would always speak to us about their experiences, where to apply for internship, when you start working, what do you expect, because they have graduated more recently. And so there was never a feeling of any kind of hesitation between us and our faculty. In fact, we have clubs on campus and we have a college newsletter that we do, and all of these things become spaces where teachers are equally as involved as students. It's not like they are dictating what should happen in a club, right? So it also increases your confidence when you can see your teacher as somebody that you can rely on, but also they are also giving you the feedback of, okay, they're also learning from you. So that was something that we had, which was really wonderful.
Nice, interesting. So in terms of your current environment, how is that really helping you grow with what the projects you're doing right now?
I think it's not very directly linked like that, but something that I think I have learned is to just approach everything in life as a student, and to accept when you maybe don't know something, because the sooner you accept, the sooner you will learn something. And I think that's the thing. Hard work is the most important thing, and nothing else really matters. And so I think we all, not always, but we try to work very hard during our college years, and that's something that, and it only gets better. That's something that sticks with me, that you should work hard, and that's something that I think is what I took away from college, because everything that you are can only build up if you put in the hard work.
All right, fine. Thanks for that, Alipta. So Julie, there's some questions coming in for you. Alipta, would you be able to share in the chat box to everyone here the links of your institution, the place where you're working right now, Studio Matter, because that's pretty interesting. It's something for them to explore. All right. Right. So there's a question from Sanjana, right? And this is for Julie. So Julie, and this getting back with a collaboration with other schools. All right. So Sanjana is asking, could you elaborate on any student exchange programs? All right. So maybe you could start off with the collaborations that you have with other schools and the opportunities for exchange.
Right. So our college has tied up with, SJUET University, CARE, Trichy, and Avani. So these are 4 colleges where we kind of have this exchange program for students. So one is in Ahmedabad, the other is in Tamil Nadu, one in Kerala, and us. So this is a collaboration that we have worked so that the student of these institutes can go to these places and work in their studios and come up with or be participating in what their studio content is. So that is one of the collaborations that we have. But there are more on the way, but this is right now what we have. But also as faculty members, we collaborate on much larger network also. But for students, these are the immediately available collaborations. Does that answer the question? Is that what Sanjana asked?
Sanjana, yeah. So Sanjana, if you could just type in whether that's okay, whether that your question has been answered, or whether you want a little more details on that. Right. So there's another couple of questions. So what are the internship opportunities for students while they're studying at Wcfa? Yeah.
So internship, I think there is a prescribed internship that they have to do somewhere around the 9th semester, which is in their final year. But our students also take up internship during their vacation. So they nearly get a month's vacation after each semester. So they really, most of them, every batch they have gone out and worked in other architects' office, and they would like to bring back what they learned during their vacation back into the studio. So the prescribed internship, which would be for 16 weeks under a registered Council of Architecture member, would happen in the 9th semester. 9th or the 7th semester in the new scheme, but that's okay. But generally somewhere around.
Okay, so is there some kind of a placement program as such with the school, and what kind of opportunities do students get in their, with these internships or the placements, final placements?
Yeah, so we don't have direct placements, but the thing is that we expect students to really complete their entire 10 semesters of architecture, work on their portfolio, work on themselves a little, and take it to these practices wherever they wish to go, because every practice in the country is different and everyone has a different aptitude. So it's not, you cannot put every practice in one bracket and say, okay, this is one office that practice sustainability. This is one that will focus only on high-rise building. So it's not like that. It's a plethora of ways in which even one firm works. The only thing is that you might like certain principles or values that are associated with one practice. So every student will have different take on it. So they have to really prove it with their portfolio that this is how they want to build their career and they would like to participate or be part of this firm. So over this 5 years, and especially in that last 1 year, every faculty member here would help the student to identify their strength and suggest firms where they could apply. But it will have to be the student who really puts it across to the firm that this is why I would like to join this. This practice. So that's how we work. But there are also instances where after the internship, the firms, there is a rapport that is built by the student, between the student and the firm, that most of the time they decide to practice there for a longer time or train with them for a longer period of time. So there are students who went for just internship for 16 weeks, ended up there for 2 years or 3 years. So that also happens. But this is how we look at stepping out into this profession.
Right, because, just building upon that, like both you and Alipta here, I mean, if you have an interest in anthropology or Alipta has an interest in curation, it's really not something that, it's an individual interest. And that's something that I think the college can give you the platform to understand and get exposed to all these areas. But in terms of really exploring these personal interests, it's up to a student to identify companies working in these areas and then figuring that out. So Alipta, coming over to you, you were interested in curation, you were interested in architecture, and you identified this company that was working in both areas. So how did you go about your placement and identifying this company and ultimately working there?
So actually, the principal architect of the firm had delivered a masterclass in our college, and he and both the partners actually came to our studio once, and we were able to present some of our work to them, and we had conversations with them. And that was during my seventh semester, and during my time, internship was ninth semester. And so when I was looking to apply to colleges, I remember that I had met this person, and so I looked at the firm, and I ended up. We do and have a plenty of opportunity to talk to our faculty about, this is my interest, and do you think I would do well in a place like this? And they would tell us their feedback, and sometimes they also just have more exposure than a student, because you are in college, you are not necessarily knowing, you're not as well traveled as your faculty. But sometimes, they would let us know that, I know this person who's doing this sort of work, or they would tell us their own experience and kind of encourage us to build up a portfolio and apply. So that's what I did. I applied and I joined this firm. I finished my internship. Then we go back and we finish our thesis. And after I finished my thesis, I applied again to the same firm, and they let me come back, and I've been working here ever since.
So very interesting. So what's happened here in your case is that the college provided the platform, you attended the masterclass, you built that link, and that's what
Right.
actually helped you with the job. Interesting, very, very interesting. And I think this is a standard that all students of architecture should do. They should participate in these activities and interactions, and they're never going to know where it's going to help them. Right. So Julie, coming back to you, you mentioned about the allied disciplines, right? The relationship between architecture and the allied disciplines. Now, this is a conversation we were having before this webinar started. So I would like you to talk a little more on those aspects, right? Because if we look at Alipta, her interest was in curation. And I think, the interest that Wcfa has in these allied disciplines is interesting. So could you let us know what happens, what are the opportunities that are given to students, and what you mean by allied disciplines?
Right. So I would say that allied disciplines could be anything that can build onto architecture. So it could be from art, it could be from theater, it could be from journalism, it could be from literature, fiction, digital media. So it could be any space. It could even be social sciences. So it just means that, architecture is not about making a building, because there is a difference when it comes to just making a building and making it for some reason, something beyond just making a house. So these disciplines really allow you to think further into what sort of a practice you want, what sort of a person you are, what sort of thought process you really want to have in your practice and all that. So I think even to talk about even history of architecture, it's never been the story of a building. It's been a story of many components that came together to make a building. Through maybe it is the role of trade, it is the role of politics, maybe it is the role of the society, maybe it's what the people wanted. So the story for a building is much larger than the brick and the mortar. So this is where we still explore, so it's not important to just talk about a building saying that, okay, it looks good, but there is a reason for a building to come up the way it is coming up or it's staying. So the story is that largely it is about that. So that is where the role of the allied disciplines come in. So as an architect, you need to be prepared enough to understand the context in which you're designing something or you're going to build something. It could be, the context could be vary from economics to the need of the user, to the current nature of the society, to ambition of a nation. Everything could determine all of this. So this is where allied disciplines come in. And there are different ways in which WCFA engages with this. So first of all, what Alipta was talking to you about is master classes and expert classes where I bring in resources from outside, like eminent architects or people from other disciplines, where we, even as faculty, want them to build on to what we are teaching. So they might have really studied a particular building or a context more than us. So we ask them to come and deliver that lecture to our students so that they understand that what was that extra effort that's gone into making this particular building or experiencing it the particular way you want. And the second part of it is where we really encourage students to participate in workshops and work with such people who's really explored in different areas. So that's where we have these options for elective workshop. So these workshops that we conduct as elective workshops may not be the same ones as prescribed by Council of Architecture. That anyway will have to go as per the syllabus. This will be the additional workshops that we are doing just so that our students learn much better and build their capacity to understand and design a building. So elective workshops, vertical studios, where we call in different architects, and every student across all batches works with this one architect to come up with strategies to solve a particular design problem, or how to look at it. What are the different ways of addressing this issue at hand? So these are different ways in which we help students to do this. But we cannot negate the role of any other discipline when it comes to architecture. It's always going to be a collaboration that you have to look for, especially in the current world. We cannot be the standalone architect anymore. We have to be on more collaborative terms. So that's what, as institute, we are trying to do.
Very interesting point that you brought up is the context in which you all are focusing on, right? It's not just the building, but it's the context and the aspirations that you all are working on. Tremendous. I think that's very interesting, a very different approach. And just to come to another question that Sanjana's asked, she's asking, could I know if the student exchange program involves studying at the other partner institution for a semester? Does that happen, or is just, how does that work?
Okay, not yet for a semester, but it'll be for 3 or 4 weeks for now. So it'll be for about a month. So we will work out our studios, the 4 colleges. We'll work it out in such a way that there is something to do in a month period. So not yet for a semester. That is because of our university guidelines and everything, because your marks still have to be entered here. So that will take some more time to be resolved. For now, it is for a month, about a month.
And does that mean that it is 1 month every year, or just 1 month in the 4 years or 5 years?
So every batch for now will get 1 month for 5 years, but that is only exchange program. But there are other programs also that happens every other year with these collaborations. So we kind of work on this collaboration every year a little more. So sometimes it will be student-conducted symposium. So students of these institutes come together and they conduct a symposium at national level for different students from different colleges also to participate. So it could be student symposium, it could be workshops that the students are organizing, for different colleges, but these 4 colleges kind of take lead and do that. So exchange per batch you get just once for now, but there are other ways of engagement as well, which will have to continue for 4 years. 5th year, you will not be doing any exchange program because you're largely on internship and then doing your thesis, but it is in the first 4 years that this will happen.
Awesome. Right. So now we'll go on to the next phase of this discussion, which is typically revolving around the number of seats and the joining process and the other aspects of this. So how many seats are there in Wcfa?
Right. So we have, our intake is 80. Our intake is 80, but majority of that is for the CET students. Most of our admissions are through CET and commentary.
Okay, okay. So that's the standard. So I'm guessing you will be following the government regulation for that. Right. So the follow-up question that generally students are asking is regarding the cutoffs. What are the cutoffs that have been happening over the last few years? If you have an idea on that.
Right. I'm not very clear with this because this admission part, we as faculty try not to, because we want to see all students equally, so we don't really participate in the admission thing, but I can approximately tell you what happens. So the cutoff would be, I think somewhere it was 194 or something last time, but I'm not really sure. But you want more details, please get in touch with the admin. But it keeps changing every year, right? So that's also there. But the exact cutoff, this thing, I would always say just check with the admin. They would be a better person to say this.
All right. Would you have an idea of whether there are separate hostels for boys, girls, where the hostels are, how the hostels are managed?
Yes. Yes. So from this academic year onwards, we do have hostels facilities available. So they're not within the campus. It's like a minute walk from the campus. So if you know Mysore, you know that to travel from point A to point B, it shouldn't take more than 10 minutes at any point in time. So we are in the heart of the city. So right across the road, there are like a couple of apartments. So the college has taken them on lease and converted a couple of them into hostels. So they are on twin sharing basis, or I think there are some rooms where there are 3 people, but there is all this facility provided there. Food also will be served, and both for girls and boys, there are hostel facilities available from this.
All right. So this was a question from Mrs. Sapna Menon, who's asked this question on YouTube. Right. I think we are coming to the end of the session. So if there are, we'll leave a few more minutes for anyone who wants to ask some last questions before we wrap up. Right. But overall, if you can just elaborate why a student should probably leave their comfort zone. Now, Mysore, most of our students are not based in Mysore, right? So they're based in Bangalore or some other city. And why should they leave their comfort zone at their city and come over to Mysore to study here?
Yeah. Stepping out of comfort zone is this process of growing, right? So it's one's choice to really step out of. I think even if you're within your own city, there are times when you really step out of your comfort zone, and that's how we grow. Now, Mysore, I think the advantage is that there are certain things that you will get in this town, in the sense that you commute very easily. You can get to places fairly easily. The connectivity is pretty good, and overall the city is also very interesting. So all this would help you as a student instead of traveling 1 hour, 2 hours to just get to school or anywhere. So I think that is about Mysore, but in general, I would say that stepping out of comfort zone and having a dream in terms of where you want to pursue, what kind of course you want to do, and how you would really like to grow as a person and a professional is something that everyone should decide. Every student should decide when they are in their 11th and 12th standard. So it need not be about Mysore alone. It needs to be about that awareness in making that decision. And
all right,
going by what their heart tells them.
Okay, all right. I saw Alipta nodding her head while you were speaking. So Alipta, do you have an opinion on this aspect?
I think it's always a good opportunity to leave your house and explore a new city. And I think in terms of that, Mysore is actually a great city to be in, because in that way, it's a very quiet place, but you will also at the same time not feel like you are missing anything. Any facility that you need will be there. And also Wcfa is a very nice place. So that way, it's a very comfortable space to be in. And I think eventually, if you are a person that wants to settle at home, you will do that anyway. This is the opportunity where you actually can go learn something and then come back home anyway if you would like to do that.
All right. Thank you so much, Alipta and Julie. And I think that's a great closing note. We've come to the end of the session. Thank you so much for taking the time out to come here and speak with our students and parents and address all the questions so patiently. Julie, is there any contact information that you'd like to share in case students want to connect?
Yeah, I think our website has all our phone numbers and our email address. So students shouldn't hesitate if they want to write us an email, because even our personal mail IDs are there. So you don't have to hold any question back or any queries back, or just write to us. We'll always reply. It's better if it's on email because we can write more elaborately than on a WhatsApp message or a text message. But feel free to write to us. All details of our admin are also there on the website. So you can either contact the admin, or all the details of our faculty members are also available. You can use anything. You can feel free to contact us.
All right. And I've posted the website address in the chat, both on YouTube and on Zoom. So thanks once again. Thanks a lot, and looking forward to have a lot of our students joining Wcfa. All right.
Thank you, Leon.
Right. Bye.
Thank you, Alipta.
Bye. And thank you. It was very nice to see you, ma'am.
Bye.